7 o'clock, everybody signed in. Everybody signed in.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Bhagavad Gita session, our discussion this evening on chapter 10. We'll begin with the invocation mantras as we normally do, which are in our Bhakti Yoga tradition, respect and appreciation or gratitude for our teachers. So we'll chant these mantras with my trusty Ektar here. Om Jnana Timurandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshuro Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namo Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishlam Stapitam Jena Putale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Tadati Swaha Padantikam Namao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanto Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Pastityadishotarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Go Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we begin this evening in chapter 10. Chapter 10 is a very wonderful chapter. It's the heart of the Bhagavad Gita, especially verses 8 through 11. Those four verses, 8, 9, 10, and 11, are called the Chatur Shloki verses, the four essential of the Bhagavad Gita, giving us the essence. So let us begin reading, and then I'll do some comments on the verses that are coming up. Okay. Begin with chapter 10, text 12.
Lakshmi, before you begin, what is this Reday meeting that it was added?
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Uh,
We'll
I
find out.
I just thought it was somebody with a title.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. As
We'll
long as,
find out.
yeah, as long as it's not interfering with anything.
No.
Okay, great. All right, so here we go. Chapter 10, text 12 through 13. Arjuna said, "You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyas confirm this truth about you. And now you yourself are declaring to me." So, what do you notice about these two verses? Can anyone tell me what they notice about these two verses that are a little unique in and of themselves? What do you think, Eleanor? What do you think they're unique about these verses? Who's speaking?
Krishna is speaking.
This is Arjuna. So Arjuna speaking. So Arjuna hasn't spoken. I believe last time he spoke was in the 8th chapter, 2nd verse. And so now he's speaking. And Krishna has said a lot. Krishna had in both the 9th chapter and the 10th chapter now, up until this point, he's made a lot of very profound statements about the nature of the absolute.
I didn't say it right. What I mean is that Arjuna is saying Krishna is absolutely everything, but I don't see the uniqueness because it has been said all along the book. I would understand.
You're right. But who has been saying it all along in the book?
Okay. All right. So now Arjuna is convinced.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, this is a real turning point because Krishna in the 4th chapter and the 7th chapter, 9th and 10th chapter, he's talking. Krishna is establishing his authority as the speaker. And Arjuna has been asking questions, raising doubts. Krishna has been answering them. But here we get a declaration by Arjuna now, which is confirmation of the things Krishna has already stated. Prior to that, Arjuna was listening, and Krishna was making the statements. I am unborn, my body never deteriorates, my birth is not an ordinary birth. So many statements that Krishna has made. 10th chapter, the Chatur Shloki verses. I am the source of everything. In the 7th chapter, just as pearls are strung on a thread, the truth is, I am the source of truth. And all of these statements Krishna has been making. So now we get a declaration of confirmation, and it's actually double confirmation because Arjuna is making the statement, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. You are the ultimate abode. You are the purest. You are the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. So that's Arjuna saying. And how is he reinforcing what he's saying? All the great sages, such as Narada Muni, Asita, Devala, and Vyasdev, they are also making these statements. And if we did the research, we would see statements made by Narad Muni, establishing Krishna as the supreme, by Veda Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, all of these various personalities. And if you were to read in the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Purana, you would also see Brahma, Indra, Shiva, various personalities, great personalities, all making the same kinds of statements. So we have a transition here. Arjuna is convinced at this point, this chapter 10, text 12 and 13, and he's stating his conviction. And this is a very important point here. In the next 5 verses, Arjuna requests Krishna to tell him more about his glories, his powers, and Krishna will comply with that request. So remember that as those 4 previous verses, 8 through 11, are the Chatur Shloki, or the 4 heart verses of this Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is establishing his supremacy, his relationship to his devotees, how by his grace knowledge is given to us. All of these factors are being pointed out by Krishna. And then Arjuna's response is this, text 12 and 13. Again, you are the supreme, the ultimate, the purest, the absolute truth, etc., etc. So we can see now that Arjuna is convinced, and he is making that statement himself, and he's quoting other sages also to reinforce that. Whenever a lawyer goes to court, one of the things the lawyer should do is, if he's making a point about why his client is innocent, or if the prosecutor is making a point why the defendant is guilty, they usually point to cases, precedent-setting cases. So similarly, when you have these various discussions about the psychology and philosophy of yoga, and within those discussions of the psychology and philosophy of yoga, the establishment of the principle that there is an absolute truth, there is an absolute personality of Godhead, identifiable, then you can see that this is how it is being established by various references. So it's an important junction in this particular 10th chapter, where Arjuna is making this statement here. So text 14, Arjuna continues, "O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality." So that's one of the things that Krishna has said, that I am the supreme, but the Deva Jagatpate, I am the Lord of Lords. I understand this truth, but no one else can. So Arjuna is saying here, "O Lord, you can understand your personality, but no one else can, except by the revelation that you bestow upon them by your mercy." So that's why bhakti is called the yoga of grace, because in bhakti, we are performing our acts of devotion and love to the Supreme, but that in and of itself is not good enough. It is actually the capturing of the Supreme's attention, Krishna's attention, and by doing so, by capturing his attention, as he says in the 11th chapter, the 11th verse, I'll read that again just to refresh you. To show them special mercy, Krishna says, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So although bhakti has a strong element of faith, bhakti similarly has a strong element of knowledge. So it's not blind faith. This is not what Krishna asks for. This is not what the great teachers of the past recommend, but it is faith which is bolstered or strengthened by knowledge. And that's why in the various texts of the sacred texts like Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, there is constant reference to the bhakti is one of the quintessential points of bhakti is the continual hearing of the character, the qualities, the characteristics of the Supreme. Once we put ourselves in contact with that level of knowledge, sound vibration, it has a transformative effect. It has a purification effect. It has an education effect. It has a transformation effect. It's similar to fire. Fire has the energy called heat. And if you put something like iron in close proximity to fire, fire will transfer its energy, heat, to iron. And then the iron, the more the iron stays by the fire, the closer the iron is to the fire, the more iron takes on that heat and becomes like fire itself. Similarly, in bhakti yoga, same principle. The more we hear about the qualities, the form, the pastimes, the name of the Supreme, the more we become purified. The result of purification is increased understanding and faith. The more we become purified, the more we become educated, the more we're bestowed, knowledge is bestowed upon us by mercy, by hearing constantly. Then there's a transformation that takes place, a transformation of the heart. What is that transformation of the heart? The transformation of the heart is we see ourselves in proper perspective to the Supreme. The nature of ego or false ego, or what's called ahankar, is that we do not see clearly our true nature. Instead, we try to establish something that we're not. And that is, we try to establish ourselves as the supreme enjoyer. Yet we're not. So by putting ourselves in constant connection with the Supreme, we begin to understand God's nature, and we begin to see our nature by comparison. In other words, that is how humility develops, by understanding the greatness of God. And that's why Krishna in Bhagavad Gita spends so much time, and the various sages throughout time immemorial, throughout history, have spent so much time in explaining the name, the pastimes, the qualities, and the form of the Supreme, to give us ample opportunity to connect ourselves through the hearing process with the Supreme. And thus we become purified, we become educated, we become transformed by that education and that purification. So, important point to understand. So 14, oh no, I read that. 15 10, this is chapter 10, text 15. Indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency. O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. So here we have it again. Arjuna, 12 through 13. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, unborn, the greatest. Again, just a few verses later, you know yourself by your own internal potency. O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of the universe. As the Lord of the universe, Krishna protects the world through his teachings, such as Bhagavad Gita. And Arjuna is recognizing that, and then thus he begins his request to learn more about the nature of Krishna, or the nature of the Supreme Person. Text 16, this is chapter 10, text 16, for all of you that are newly joining us. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. I accept you as such. Now I want to continue to hear of your potencies, your powers, your glories. So Arjuna is making that request. And in text 17, O Krishna, O Supreme Mystic, how shall I constantly think of you? And how shall I know you? In what various forms are you to be remembered, O Supreme Personality of God? And this is very significant, is it not? Because what was the last verse of the 9th chapter? Can anyone remember what the last verse of the 9th chapter is? And Krishna makes a request of Arjuna and all those who are in deep meditation on the Bhagavad Gita. So he says in 9:34, you may remember this, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me, being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So if you remember, so now what's Arjuna asking? How? How do I think of you? Krishna, you're making that request. Certainly, I have the faith in you that you are in fact worthy because of all the things I've just described about you. You are worthy of that remembrance. But how do I do it? So Arjuna asks Krishna, please tell me of your opulence. Though Krishna has already explained that he is everything, he says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo. Arjuna, however, is requesting more information. He wants to get it in greater detail, so there is no misunderstanding about Krishna's position. Why? Because he wants to think of Krishna, and he wants to know how to accomplish that. It seems like a daunting task. When Krishna says, always think of me, that's a daunting task, especially when we're dealing with the minds that we're dealing with. Mind that is influenced by its connection with matter is always churning and turning. That's why the word that Patanjali uses in his Yoga Sutras is vritti. It's always turning. It's going from one thought to the next thought to the next thought, a stream of thoughts, then change over to another stream of thoughts, etc. And that's all consuming. So Arjuna, for clarity's sake, he's saying, how can I always think of you? Give me the process. You have given me the process. You've spoken about yoga. You've explained karma yoga. You've touched on jnana yoga. You're now in the midst of explaining Bhakti Yoga. So give me a way to connect to you always. Krishna recommends the process to Arjuna at the end of the 6th chapter. Madgate nantaratmana, always abide in me. Think of me within yourself. So at the end, Krishna is making the statement of all yoga systems. This yoga system that I'm introducing you now, the Bhakti Yoga system, is the way to do it. It's simply the most effective way to do it. So that's why Krishna emphasizes bhakti, yoginam ape sarvishan madgate nantaratmana, at the end of the 6th chapter. Prabhupada explains that Arjuna has asked about Krishna's all-pervading opulence. So Arjuna is asking, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your potencies, your opulences. I want to meditate on you, and I want to give all people the opportunity to understand how to meditate upon you. So therefore, I am making this request. Remember, there's 4 ways that we can meditate on Krishna. Nama means the name. According to the, I think it's Svetashvatara Upanishad, there's no difference between the name and the named. So that sound vibration is one way to always think of Krishna. Name, nama. From name comes purification of our perspective, so we can think of the name in relationship to the named. Nama, rupa. Rupa means form. So name, form, back and forth, meditate on the form of the Supreme, meditate on the name. So that's another way. Third way, nama rupa guna. Guna means the qualities. If you read, Krishna is going to tell Arjuna about all of his qualities. I am the heat of the sun. I am ability in man. I am of aquatics. I am the shark. He just goes on, just different ways that he gives the essences of things that can be perceivable. And when you take that essence and you realize the essence of the sun and its heat and its light, that is me. So Krishna gives us another, so it's nama, rupa, guna. Name, form, qualities. And then as we get in the 10th canto of the Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, you get Leela. What Krishna has done while present in this world. All of those pastimes, Leela. Leela can mean pastime. It could also mean play. So this is how God plays or acts in relationship to his various lovers, like Radha or the cowherd boys or Mother Jasoda. And we see that interaction, and the sweetness and purity of that interaction attracts our mind, because who does not want sweet, loving interaction with others? Is there anyone who does not want that? You don't want sweetness from another person in a very loving, affectionate way? Sure we do. Sure we seek that out. Even the hardest of hearts will seek that out. What to speak of those hearts that are melting like butter, becoming soft like butter, by putting the heart in connection with the energy, the bhakti shakti, the energy of bhakti, the energy of love and devotion. It melts the heart, and the heart becomes as soft as butter. So when the heart is as soft as butter, certainly we want to have, to engage in loving devotion, a loving relationship with the Supreme in various ways. So Nama Rupa Guna Lila, these 4 ways are very, very powerful. Text 18. Again, O Arjuna, again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. Now, one may ask, especially if one is already a practicing bhakti yogi, one may ask, how is it that I'm not on that level? How come I'm not getting that kind of taste? How come I'm not experiencing? I am satiated. Sometimes I'm bored in my chanting or in my reading, etc. Why is it? And basically, because we're not. 2 things. One thing is we have to check the efficacy or the way we are practicing our bhakti, because it is a science. And if we are inattentive, if we are committing offenses, if we're doing all of these things, it has a tendency to create disturbance within the mind. Just like Jiva Goswami in his book called the Bhakti Sandarbha, he says that when we are offensive to others, especially Vaishnavas, those that are giving their life as an offering to the Supreme, the mind goes through transformations. The mind gets affected in such a way is that it can be deceitful or crooked. Jiva Goswami says crooked. So how can I be a practicing bhakti yogi trying to think of Krishna and my mind's becoming deceitful? My mind is becoming diminishing in faith. My mind, I see my mind is becoming more and more attached to things, even things that I was attached to years ago, and I gave up knowing that they were not beneficial for my advancement. Sometimes they come back to haunt us. How is that possible? Then we become slack in our sadhana. How is that possible? If what Arjuna is saying here, I am never satiated in hearing about you, for the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. So Arjuna is giving us a little indicator. If we are doing things properly, that's inspirational. Inspire means from God. So we become inspired when we're in connection with God, and therefore we do not become satiated or bored or inattentive. That's an indicator. So it's not that we should be down on ourselves. We should just recognize what these indicators are and try to tighten our sadhana, try to focus more, to become more attentive. And then very quickly, by the potency of our meditation, then we will lose the taste for old attachments, and our faith will be revived. Our desire to be free from any kind of crooked tendency within the mind. All these things are naturally acquired in the Srimad Bhagavatam, said all the great qualities of the demigods are naturally achieved by one who performs bhakti. So these very, very good qualities, good characteristics, they begin to arise in the heart of one whose sadhana is efficient and practiced with a great deal of attention. That taste is called in Sanskrit ruchi. Text 19. So Arjuna makes his petition. Now Krishna answers. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless." So Krishna says, I'm just going to give you a taste because there's so much that I can bestow upon you. Just like if you remember the famous quote by Jesus, Lord Jesus, where he says that there is so much more to tell you, but your ears cannot bear it now. That's what the statement that Jesus makes, which is in part an explanation why he doesn't give them more information, more detailed information. Because what does Jesus say? Your ears cannot bear it now. What does Krishna say? I'm going to give you a little taste so that you're not overwhelmed. When Arjuna in the next chapter comes in direct contact with Krishna's opulences visually through the vision of the Virat Rupa or the universal form, he becomes overwhelmed. So that's why Krishna is saying here in the 10th chapter, he's giving a forewarning. I'm just going to give you a little insight into the nature of my opulences. Otherwise, you'll become overwhelmed. Because my opulences, Krishna is saying, are limitless. Text 20. I am the Supersoul, O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Now, who remembers the few times that I discussed that the Supreme manifests in 3 different perspectives, right? Eleanor, do you remember that? Can you tell us? Share with us?
Oh, no, I don't dare to do that. No.
You want to try one?
Bhagavan,
Yes.
the
Bingo.
most supreme,
Yeah, the person.
the person. Brahman would be the manifestation of the first manifestation, would I say?
Yeah, the energy, the
The
manifestation
energy.
of the underlying energy of all life.
And I got stuck now.
Okay,
Brahman,
you
Bhagavan.
have a hand here for help. You want that? You want to use your lifeline for help?
Yes.
Hey, Naradi, you have was that Naradi that said that? Or is that me that's pushing it? Oh, that was me. How about
I
you,
don't see any hand.
Shaktiman? How about you? You want to give her a hand?
Yeah.
Brahman?
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Paramatma. Yes. So Eleanor, 2 out of 3 is not bad. So the supreme immortality, as Krishna describes Brahman in the 14th chapter, immortality, imperishability, eternality. He gives us a definition there. Bhagavan is the possessor of 6 opulences in full, in completion. Those 6 opulences, the opulence of wealth, fame, renunciation, strength, beauty, and knowledge. So the definition of Bhagavan is that personality which possesses those six opulences in completion. So the one that you almost got, Eleanor, is Paramatma, and that is super soul within the heart, divinity within the heart. As the Supreme exists eternally in the eternal abode of Goloka Vrindavan, Vaikuntha, so he also comes to this world, manifests himself in this world in the form of super soul within the heart and within the atom of everything in this material manifestation, and that's called super soul. So what does Krishna say here in text 20? I am the super soul. O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and end of all beings. So Krishna, in this verse and the next 20 verses, Krishna lists various objects or groups of living entities and states that he is either their essence or the chief member of each group. Krishna is giving us opportunity of how to always think of him. Because Arjuna says to them, you said that to me, Krishna. Manmana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskar. Always think of me, always worship me. How do I do that? So Krishna is giving us various ways by which we can connect, reconnect. So text 21 is the beginning of the 20 verses that Krishna recites to give Arjuna an opportunity to understand how to always think of him, how to connect to him. In text 21, of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. How many times do you walk outside and there is the radiant sun? All the time. Here in Florida, we're always in the radiant sun. That's why we have to be careful of our skin. The radiant sun is so potent. We have to be careful. So you, Eleonora, you're in Brazil, right?
Argentina.
Oh, Argentina, I'm sorry. And
Yeah.
Argentina is also sunny?
Opposite to you. It would be sunnier in December, January, February.
Oh, I see. Like Australia in some regards.
Yeah. Well, we are almost in the same situation with Australia, right?
Okay. So here Krishna is saying, I am the radiant sun. Instead of sunbathing, thinking how dark I can get or how orange I can get, we can think of that radiant sun, the heat and the light of that radiant sun. That is Krishna. One form of meditation, even if you're on the beach. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi, and among the stars, I am the moon. How many evenings have you gone out and observed the beauty of the moon in one or all the various phases that the moon, right? How often have you done that? So what Krishna is saying here, this essence, the heat of the sun, the radiance of the sun, the beauty of the moon, among all of the stars that are out there, the moon stands out first and foremost. we used to go, before it got really hot in the summer, we would go, my wife and I would go to the beach very early in the morning to do our japa. And my God, it was so beautiful. Right before the sun rose, the moon in the sky was just absolutely breathtaking. So there were other stars there, but by comparison, the beauty of the moon was so profound. So what is Krishna saying here? He's saying, and among the stars of that group of celestial orbs, I am the most beautiful of them. I am the moon. So again, you take a walk in the moonlight, here's a way to meditate. You take a walk in the sunlight. I don't know, Irina, are you still in Puerto Rico? Because that's one place.
Hare Krishna, I'm back to Miami a few days ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Welcome
Every
back.
other month. Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Miami.
Okay, but you being in Miami, you can also appreciate the radiance of the sun. And if you take you could take a moonlight walk, the beauty of the moon. So these are opportunities for meditation on the Supreme. 22, text 22 of chapter 10 of the Vedas, I am the Samaveda. So we have the Vedas, the four main Vedas, Samaveda, Rig Veda, Atharva Veda, and Yajur Veda. Those are the four main Vedas. And Krishna is declaring himself to be the Samaveda. I am of the demigods, I am Indra, the king of heaven, the king of the demigods. So that nobility, that kingness, that supreme, the essence or the greatness, Krishna is saying, I am that. Of the senses, I am the mind. How strong is the mind? The mind is so, so strong that if we do not try to control it, it will control us thoroughly, unbridled. And so the mind. So what Krishna is saying here, of the senses, I am the mind. So Krishna says in the 6th chapter that of the mind can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And this is the difference between an uncontrolled and a controlled mind. For a yogi, it is tantamount to control the mind. If you are learning yoga, whatever yoga discipline it is, and you are not yet learning that the mind must be controlled, rather, if you're given license for an uncontrolled mind, then you are not learning yoga, you're doing exercises or breath work. Because yoga means, one of the meanings of yoga is to control the mind. Very, very important principle. And Krishna says it's of the group of senses, the mind is the foremost. And in living beings, I am the living force. Well, what is the living being? The living being is living because of the force, the life force that's within it. The living being is not the body. This is what Krishna is making the point. Because without that life force, what is the body? The body is destined to become, again, earth, dust, ashes, or stool. Burned in the fire of cremation, dust, the influence of time, ashes, dust. Stool means that when the body is buried, then it's eaten by the worms. That is what it is, sans the life force, the living force. So that's why Krishna is saying, in living beings. What is of utmost importance? It is the life force. And I am that consciousness. He is the supreme consciousness, and he is that which infuses consciousness in all living entities. Text 23. See where we are here, keeping track of time. Okay. Of all the Rudras, I am Lord Shiva. Of the Yakshas and Rakshas, I am the Lord of wealth, Kuvera. Of the Vasus, I am fire, Agni. And of mountains, I am Meru. Text 24. Of priests, O Arjuna, know me to be the chief priest, Brihaspati. Of generals, I am Kartikeya. And of bodies of water, I am the ocean. The ocean is so great that it neither increases when rivers and rains pour into it, nor decreases when its water evaporates. That is how powerful the ocean is. And therefore, Krishna is saying, I am the ocean, I am the essence. So we're getting some insight here about what Krishna is giving us, the opportunities that he's giving us to meditate on him. And in the Beta Beta Tattva, Krishna also, the great sages also tell us, let me see here. I have some notes here I would like to share with you. Here we are. Krishna says, oh, you know what I've been doing? That's funny. Somehow or another, I've hit the record button and all this has been recorded on my notes. Well, let me see if I can scroll down to the end here. Okay. Yeah, so in the various Upanishads, one thing is to recommend that these differences, these Vedas, so there's a difference between God and the individual spirit. So our Krishna in the Sankhya Yoga division of the Bhagavad Gita, the second chapter, he's making a distinction between himself, the supreme, and the spirits. Natvevaham jatunasham natwang name janadipa na chaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayamatakparam. Never was there a time when I did not exist, Krishna's eternal existence, nor you, Arjuna, individual living entity, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. And in Prabhupada, in that particular verse, he quotes, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetanam, that there is a supreme eternal, and then there are finite eternals known as the living entities. So one of the recommendations from the Upanishads is understanding difference between the supreme and the individual spirit soul. And we see in Bhagavad Gita how Krishna is emphasizing that. Another thing, it's described in the Upanishads, the difference between one soul and another. In that verse, I just quoted, Natvevaham jatuna shang, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. Notice that Krishna is emphasizing the distinction between each soul. So there's a distinction, there's a difference between the supreme and the soul. The difference between one soul and another, we're all unique, individual parts and parcels, sparks of the supreme fire, drops of the same ocean water. So that is another thing, how we can meditate. 3, the difference between soul and matter. So we have the difference between the supreme God and the soul, the difference between the different souls, the difference between soul and matter. All of these can become a part of an expansive meditation that helps us to focus on the supreme. Difference between soul and matter. Number 4, the differences between God and matter. That Krishna gives us that distinction in the 7th chapter when he says these 8, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, these 8 are part of my separated energy. So Krishna is giving us in the Gita all of these things, how to understand these differences, how to meditate on these differences, how that puts us into proper perspective as to who we are, and in a purposeful universe, what is our purpose? That's one thing that Krishna is talking about, the purposeful universe. And Krishna is very specific when he talks about the purposeful universe. So understanding the differences between God and matter, and ultimately the differences between matter and matter. So all gross matter and its distinctions, subtle matter and its distinctions, and the differences between gross and subtle matter and its distinctions. So all of these are various ways by which we can meditate on the Supreme. That brings us to a state of humility. There's a very humble monk, and he was walking on pilgrimage, and in his pilgrimage, he comes upon in an ancient ruin a beautiful gem. Now he's legitimately a monk and very renounced, so he admires the beauty of the gem, and he doesn't exult, oh, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. He just takes the jewel and he puts it into his pouch. He walks on, continues his journey, and along the pilgrim path, he meets another pilgrim, very, very poor, has no money, has no food. And this poor pilgrim, seeing the monk, he says, my dear monk, please have mercy upon me. Can you kindly, if you have some food, can you kindly share it with me? So the monk says, yes, whatever I have, I will give to you. So the monk opens his pouch and starts taking things out of it. The poor pilgrim sees in the pouch this absolutely magnificent gem, who he recognizes as something which is extremely valuable. So the poor pilgrim, in seeing this, his eyes got big, and the monk says, oh, you see this? Do you want it? And the pilgrim says, yes, will you give it to me? And the monk says, yes, here, take it. And the poor pilgrim is now like, there is no poverty now. I can, on this one gem, it's so valuable, I can live for the rest of my life. And he runs away and he's dancing and singing and so happy. And the monk, unfazed, puts everything back into his pouch, closes it up, and continues on his journey. So sometime later, the poor pilgrim who was gifted the gem, is back on the scene, and he's along the pilgrim's path, and he's searching after this monk, and he's asking everyone, have you seen the monk, this monk that is on the pilgrim's path? And One person saying, yeah, I saw him up there. He goes there to this temple. He's not there. Have you seen this monk? And another person says, yeah, I saw him. He was headed towards the sacred river, Jamuna River. Oh, okay. He runs down. Finally, the once poor pilgrim who was gifted this very valuable gem comes up to the monk, and he falls down at his feet, and he says to the monk, please take the gem back. And the monk is surprised because he certainly noticed how happy he was when he got the gem, and now he's asking for him to take it back. So the monk says to the poor pilgrim, why do you want to return the gem to me? I thought, this will solve all of your economic woes. And the pilgrim says, I got to thinking. He said, after having this gem, I thought to myself, what's more valuable than this gem? It's what makes the monk able to give this gem away with no attachments, no string attached, no attachments. He said, that's what I want. I find that to be more valuable than this gem. So the monk says, okay, sit down and I will teach you how to attain this. Close your eyes, chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that's it for this evening. Thank you so much for your attention. Does anyone have any questions or comments about what we discussed this evening? If Eleanor, if you can place a marker so that I remember.
Yeah, I did already. Yeah.
We're on 25, right?
No, 20. Oh, wait a minute. I moved my page.
25, I believe.
24 is coming.
Okay. All right. So
Oh, no, you said the ocean. 25. You are right. Yeah.
25. So just remember that. So if anyone has any question or comment, I'd be happy to entertain it at this point. If not,
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
okay. Gayatri?
Hare Krishna. So it's not really a question on Bhagavad Gita, but since Krishna mentioned that he is, among the Rudras, he's Shiva, I want to understand. So altogether, there are like 11 Rudras, right? And who are they? I mean, and how come Lord Shiva is one of them? And did they come out from Brahma? Did Brahma create those Rudras? But Lord Shiva wasn't created by Brahma, right? Can you just a little bit explain this topic?
Yeah, those Rudras came out of Brahma's third eye, came out of it. They were manifestations of anger, his anger. Shiva is they may be aspects of Shiva or Shiva's anger, but they are not the complete Shiva. So there is a distinction between plenary portions and the complete whole. So in this regard, Shiva is the complete whole, and Shiva in and of itself is quite an esoterically wonderful topic, because we have understanding of Shiva in many different ways, because as we know from the Puranas, there are 6 Puranas in the mode of goodness, 6 in the mode of passion, and 6 in the mode of ignorance. So those that are in the mode of ignorance describe Shiva in a particular way, because it is those who are steeped in ignorance, through Shiva's mercy, he can offer them liberation. So Shiva appears to them in a particular way. And those that are in the mode of passion, well, Shiva is Ashutosh, which means one who is easily pleased and one who is easily displeased. So those in passion who want to acquire, they can do sacrifices and obtain boons from Shiva that will allow them to achieve their goal. But those that are in Sattva Gun see Shiva in a different way. First of all, there is the expansion of Mahavishnu, which is called Sadashiva. And Sadashiva is actually a manifestation of the Supreme that comes in contact with the material nature. This means that when there is an injection of the living entities into the womb of material nature, Krishna does not do that directly himself, nor does his expansion, one of the Purusha avatars known as Karanadakshay Vishnu or Mahavishnu, nor does he come directly in contact with material nature. What comes in direct contact with material nature in order to inject within the womb of material nature is Sadashiva. So this Sadashiva is a transcendental expansion from the Supreme and has a very unique position as such. And he's also the Lord of Kailash and the eternal, the consort of Parvati. So in this way, he has his abode, which is neither in the spiritual world or the material world, Kailash, and he is the Bhutanath, he's the liberator of ghosts and goblins and demons. He's also in relationship to this world. He's one of the guna avatars. He's an avatar, just like Brahma is, and Lord Vishnu is, and Shiva is. He's an avatar, and his particular function in this manifestation as an avatar is to oversee Tamagun and its workings, which basically is destruction. So Shiva is that also, as opposed to Brahma. Now, Brahma and Shiva are also different because Brahma is a living entity. He's the topmost living entity. And he can also be, if there's no living entity qualified to be Brahma, he can also be an expansion of the Lord. But Shiva is his own Shakti. He's his own special energy. And as I said, this Shiva Shakti is an expansion of the Supreme that can come in contact with the material nature. That's why he is considered so special. And from the nature of the Vaishnavas, those that study the topmost Purana in the mode of Sattva Gun, the Bhagavad Purana or the Srimad Bhagavatam, he is considered the greatest devotee of the Lord, who always meditates on Lord Sankarshan. So Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. So these Rudras, 11 Rudras, are a manifestation of plenary or portion manifestation of Shiva in the form of anger that will gobble up the universe if not stopped.
So these 11 Rudras, they are not regular beings. They are still portions of Lord Shiva. They are not like us. They're not human.
Right. Yeah, they're manifestations of Shiva Shakti in this form.
I do not understand why Lord Shiva's manifestations came out from Brahma.
Well, even Shiva appeared through Brahma. Brahma is an intermediary. You know, he that is his purpose when he wanted to understand what his purpose in life, when he appeared on the stem of the lotus flower of Garbhodakshay Vishnu and he went into meditation and he performed tapas. His understanding was that he would be the medium by which everything would manifest in this world. So he's also chosen as a medium for manifestation of Shiva and his forms. That doesn't make him greater than or the source of Shiva. It just means that he is the medium by which he appears.
So Parvati is Sada Shiva or regular Shiva?
Say that again?
So Parvati, right? She is the consort of Sada Shiva or just Lord Shiva?
No, it's just Lord Shiva of Mount Kailash, that Shiva.
And the Sada Shiva, does he have a consort?
He's a special manifestation of the Lord for this creative function, this purpose of injecting the living entities from their state, their dormant state within Mahavishnu into the womb of the material energy.
So Sadashiva, he is by himself. He doesn't have a female part. He does all of the creation and
No,
like impregnation by him.
he has the form of the material manifestation in the form of, I don't know exactly what name, but it's the same as Parvati or Uma or Durga, etc. Only she is the recipient of in her womb, of the womb of the material energy. Shiva is injecting the living entities in their dormant state, so he serves as that. So, but yes, all manifestations have both the masculine and feminine manifestation.
Okay, so at the end, who destroys the universe? The Buddhas or Lord Shiva or the Sadashiva?
They're Lord Shiva.
Yeah, it's one of the 11 Rudras, Kala Rudra. Yeah, just to add, like Brahma creates this universe in the mode of passion, right? So there should be someone in the mode of ignorance to destroy this. So that is Shiva. And in the 11 Rudras, he takes that Kala Rudra to destroy.
Yes. That is his manifestation of anger, and the destructive potency of anger.
Bhairava.
Yeah. Narottam Das.
Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you.
Narottam Das Thakur says anger destroys everything. So it's one of the main hurdles, challenges in our life is to control Vacha Begam, the urge to speak; Manasa Begam, the urge of the mind; Krodha Begam, the urge of anger; Jiva Begam, the urge to taste; Uddara Upashta Begam, the urge of the belly and the genitals. These urges are the challenges put before the yogi in order to elevate oneself to the position of being able to teach the world.
And one last question. So when the universe, transforms into the unmanifested stage, which type of Shiva remains? The Sada Shiva remains? And the Shiva who lives in Kailash, he remains?
Yes.
And the Rudras disappeared?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, Lakshmi.
Sure.
I'm curious why in verse 22, consciousness is Chetana instead of Atman or Purusha.
I am the living force. And the Sanskrit word is Chaitana.
Right.
Well,
Bhutanam asmi Chetana.
well, that is one of the words, maybe syllable, synonym, but Chaitana is used as the life force, meaning it's a Sanskrit word meaning life force.
Okay.
It is a word that's used throughout various texts that I have read, and we even have Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya.
Oh, Chaitanya comes from there? Okay, all right, okay, all right, okay. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just want to add to Gayatri Mataji's question. I
Yes.
think there is partial destruction and there is a complete destruction, right? So the complete destruction happens from the Adishesh, right?
Okay, very good.
Yeah, the complete destruction happens. I think the five flames comes from Adishesh at the bottom of the universe. That's what I remember and I read. And there is partial destruction also. I think that's where I don't know if I need to go through the videos again and have to see. But there are two destructions. One is partial and one is complete. The complete
Right.
happens from Adishesh. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. If you want to do a little research on that, little homework, Shaktiman, so
Mhm.
you can elaborate on that point a little bit more for Gayatri and for the rest of our understanding, that would be great.
Yeah.
Especially because listening to you is very, very hard. There's something in your mic or
I have a lecture from Romapada Swami Maharaj Prabhu. I mean, if I may share, but he explains very well the abodes of Lord Shiva in different parts of this universe, and he explains that whatever he explained that the glance of Vishnu on this material Mahatattva, right? So
Yeah.
there's a very nice lecture. I used to listen to Shiva Tattva a lot in this lecture, so I forgot them, but I have to revisit.
Is that in written form or is that in spoken?
It's a video. It's a video.
Do you have a
I can
link?
share that.
You
Yeah,
can
I can share. Yeah, he explains all these abodes of Lord Shiva, how many abodes are there in this universe, and yeah, it's very nice.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. I'm sure we'd all appreciate that.
Yeah.
I have a question. Is that from the Shaiva point of view?
That one Romapad Swami, no, it'll be from the Vaishnav point of view.
Okay. And how do Shaivas read the Bhagavad Gita?
Well, mostly through the eyes of Shankaracharya. Therefore, Shaivites in general, except for the Nayanars, who are more in the devotional mood, usually take from Shankaracharya and understand their understanding of Shiva is that ultimately, he's the giver of Brahman, the Brahman Mukti liberation. Because from the perspective of Advaitin philosophy, there is form doesn't exist in the absolute nature in Brahman. Only formlessness does. Yeah. So that's more the Shaivite perspective coming from Adi Shankar.
Prabhu, do you have a separate group for this? Because I don't know if you can post that in the devotees group.
I don't, but if you post it in the devotees group, I know Gayatri will be able to get it, and I
can personally ping you and Gayatri Mataji.
Okay,
And
and maybe Eleonora would be interested also. Maybe you can do both. Give it to Gayatri, and then share it in that way.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you so much.
I tell you again, Shaktiman, I cannot understand what you're saying because your words come mixed up with cuts in the microphone. So
I'm very sorry. I'm
what do
walking.
you need? Yeah, what do you need? My email?
No, I can share it to Lakshmi Narasimha Prabhu and he may share it. Or I can
Okay.
share it to Gayatri
I'll
Mataji.
pass it on to you, Eleanor, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lak.
All righty. Thank you so much. Well, that will end this evening's discussion. I thank you all for your kind attention during the course of our discussion and for your wonderful questions. They are always, stimulating both to myself and the rest of us. So questions are always greatly appreciated. Any realizations that you have or anything that you would like to share, like Shaktiman did, that's also greatly appreciated. So until we have our next discussion next week on next Wednesday.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'm sorry to stop everyone. Just one last question. So the story which you shared about the monk, it's same as Rupa Goswami or Haridas Thakur. I've heard that he has a gem and he gives it to. He asks, "What do you need?" It
Well,
looks similar.
there is another story That comes in our tradition about Sanatana Goswami, yes.
Yeah, Sanatan Goswami. Yeah, yeah.
And
Thank you.
This is another story that comes from
Yeah.
another lineage, but it's very similar.
It's similar, very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Next week, Wednesday, I think is Balarama's Dheeran's day. So I don't know if you're going to have class.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, probably not next Wednesday if it's Wednesday on Balaram's appearance day, what's the date of that, Gayatri?
30th.
30?
30th, and then Krishna's birthday.
So the Thursday, 30th of August and the 6th of September, that will be Balaram on the 30th and Krishna on the 6th. We won't have class on that time. Okay, so if you can kindly make that in your notes. I am having, on the 6th, we're having a Janmashtami celebration at my home here. And of course, I think most of you know about it. Eleanor, if you want to catch a flight up here from Argentina, you're more
I'll
than-
try.
Tuesday or Thursday.
What? Yeah. We could do it on an alternative date rather than to miss it. But I know, Eleanor, do you work on Tuesdays or not?
No. Just pick a day.
Okay. Is everyone okay with Tuesday evening? We could have it Tuesday evening, the 29th. Sid, how are you? Is that good for you, Sid?
Yes.
Okay, and Shakti Mom, Gayatri, if you would like, that would.
I'll try to make it if I don't go to office.
Okay.
I'll still try to make it.
What I'll do is I'll announce it so you have it for your reference, and if you can make it, wonderful.
29th and 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty. This way we'll keep up the momentum, we'll keep up the flow, and I'll advertise it so other people will know too. So again, thank you so much. You all have a happy, healthy, and holy week. And until we see each other again on the 29th, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.